There's been a discussion going on lately concerning the subject of transgender people. Those here on YouTube who have made the most unfounded and offensive statements regarding transgender people are our friends in the rabid Uber Femicrazy Club, specifically the user commonly known as Diana Boston, who openly refers to trans women as men. For all their constant complaining that Western women are in every way oppressed and abused by the man, they look upon transgender people, especially trans women, with disgust and hatred, claiming that they are frauds attempting to co-opt or fetishize the female body. Whatever the hell that means. That's the more extreme message. Recently, the user Skid Row Radio, more commonly known as Ujama Flipper, made a number of videos trying to clarify and re-clarify his position on transgender people, even though he made it clear that he never lifted a finger to do any real research on the subject. So who the hell is going to take that seriously? And recently there was a vicious attack on a trans woman at a McDonald's in Baltimore, Maryland, which was caught on video and uploaded onto worldstarhiphop.com. But I'll get to that a little bit later. There seems to be widespread misinformation and misunderstanding concerning transgender people, far more than about the gay, lesbian, and bisexual community. It seems that the only experience that the general public has with transgender people are by some tragedy, some B-level celebrity, or someone appearing in porn. I'll do my best to help clear up some of these misgivings, although I will admit right off the bat that I've never known any transgender people personally, and so I've never had the opportunity to converse one-on-one and in-depth with someone who self-identifies as such. But like I said, I'll do my best. Being transgendered means that an individual's gender identity is in disassociation with his or her biological sex. Simply put, transgender people spend their lives feeling as though they are actually the opposite of what sex they were born as. Gender identity is how a person self-identifies in regards to the division of gender between male and female, or in rare cases, neither. This concept is a bit difficult for people to grasp if they don't have this sort of dissociation. Most of us don't spend a lot of time pondering what exactly it is that makes us male or female, because there's no inner conflict over it. For instance, I understand that I'm a woman, and it has nothing to do with my girl parts. My mind has never had any misgivings about what gender I am, regardless of what I look like. Everything I feel and experience in life reinforces the fact that I'm a woman. It isn't about looking or acting girly, because there were many times in my life when I had little interest in girl things, such as dolls or makeup, and at times had quite an androgynous appearance. Happy Easter. The point is that whatever behavior or gender roles that society has concocted has nothing to do with one's core gender identity. In my case, and in the cases of most people, my biological sex and my gender identity are in line with one another. I'm a woman and my body is female, and this is called being cisgendered. Transgender people experience exactly the opposite. Their biological sex conflicts with their gender identity. Oftentimes, the words transgender and transsexual are interchangeable because transsexualism specifically refers to individuals who either wish to undergo sex reassignment therapy or have already begun such therapy, which can include genital reassignment surgery, but not always. This is when certain members of the lunatic fringe element of the feminist movement get sand in their vaginas over the prospect of women who are born biologically male altering their bodies to fit their true gender, as if being born a female somehow makes someone special. I, for one, agree with Daiwada Man's assessment on the subject, in that which the idea of someone who is biologically male being willing to give up their so-called male privilege that is bestowed upon them at birth by the dominant woman-hating patriarchy is just another example that blows away their ridiculous, ass-backwards worldview of all women being systematically oppressed by the male sex. So just like the sex workers who debunk the idea that all such people are forced into sex work and none actually want to do it, the radfems simply brush the transsexuals aside rather than own up to their refuted ideology. But again, That's the extremist view. In an attempt to keep biological males and biological females in their designated places, some will pretend to care about the mental health of transgenders and argue that sex reassignment therapy is a negative and unhealthy course of action, one that is pushed upon people by arrogant, greedy doctors, or even stating that no one should feel the need to change their bodies to feel better about themselves. It's genius, because it makes them appear sympathetic enough for others to forget that they're still abiding by a bigoted mindset. Sex reassignment therapy isn't a snap, as some may think. In order to be approved for such therapy, transsexuals have to be thoroughly evaluated by doctors and therapists before even being considered for such therapy, and to suggest that people are manipulated into it doesn't jive with the fact that many transgenders are actively seeking it out. And while submitting to such a barrage of medical examinations may seem very intrusive, and perhaps it is, the purpose is to establish that the individual's mental health can be impacted negatively if they continue to inhabit a body that feels out of place with their gender. It's not the same thing as people hating their bodies because they've been systematically brainwashed by the media that only one kind of body type is considered beautiful. Transgender people aren't suffering from low self-esteem because they think they're fat or unattractive. And it certainly isn't a case of body dysmorphic disorder, which is a psychological condition in which an individual is constantly obsessing over perceived flaws, many erroneously believing that they are unspeakably hideous, regardless of what they actually look like. This is different. It would be like me, a woman, waking up every day and being horrified to see a man staring back at me when I look in the mirror. There is not one specific factor that has been proven to cause transsexualism, although most of the theories that have the strongest evidence lay with biological causes. Personally, I've been convinced by the theory that exposure to hormones in utero and in early infancy, which are thought to play the biggest role in brain differentiation and gender identity and sexuality, is the most likely reason. However, there are other theories and possible genetic links to consider. The theories I have more or less rejected due to the lack of credible evidence is the idea that transsexualism can be caused by childhood trauma or child rearing that violates specific gender roles. For starters, a lot of people suffer trauma as children and don't turn out to be transgender. Conversely, not all transgender people suffered childhood trauma. The nature versus nurture argument is a rough one. There aren't many examples of children being raised to believe that they are the opposite gender or sex to prove either theory. However, there is one case of such an occurrence, the case of David Reamer. He was born Bruce, and as an infant, sex reassignment surgery was forced upon him after a botched circumcision, and he was subsequently raised as a girl. This reprehensible turn of events was overseen by a psychologist who had his own agenda of proving that gender identity was not innate, but he was wrong. Although his true sex was hidden from him, Bruce, renamed Brenda, claimed that he never felt like a female and did not behave in a feminine way, despite being given a steady diet of hormonal supplements. Because of this, he endured a very unhappy childhood, and when he threatened suicide at the age of 14, his parents finally told him the truth about what had happened to him. Afterwards, he changed his name to David and assumed a male identity, eventually undergoing hormone and surgical treatments to reverse his forced sex reassignment. Yes, David was just one case, but a compelling one against the idea that gender is learned rather than inborn. On April 18th, a trans woman named Chrissy Lee Paulus was viciously beaten into a seizure by two young women after attempting to use a restroom at a Baltimore McDonald's. The beating was recorded on a cell phone and has since gone viral on the internet, causing a wave of outrage at the brutality of the attack and the callousness of the employees who stood by and did nothing to help, but instead encouraged the girls to beat on this woman when it was discovered that she was transgender. I'm going to leave a link in the description box below, but I have to warn those who are particularly sensitive. The video is violent and very difficult to watch. The two girls shown on the video have been arrested, one being only 14 years old and is being tried as a juvenile. The employee that filmed and egged on the two beasts has been revealed by the smoking gun as Vernon Charm Hackett, and he has since been fired from Mickey D's, but personally I don't think that's enough. All of the employees who cheered on with him should be fired at the very least, and possibly even charged with depraved indifference for encouraging such an attack. Fortunately, Chrissy appears to be recovering well, and I wish her the best of luck. Hopefully her attack will spark interest and awareness in the very real prejudice that transgender people face, for which they are constantly ignored. For instance, the silence and lack of attention from the nationwide media over this particular hate crime is deafening, and it makes me wonder how long it took for incidences of gay bashing to finally make headlines everywhere. This woman even said that this wasn't the first time she had been physically attacked because of her gender. Just how prevalent are such attacks? Apparently much more than the media seems to care about. Which brings me to discrimination. In the US, transgender people are not a federally protected group requiring equal treatment. That is left up to the individual states and territories. So far, only 13 states as a whole prohibit discrimination against transgender people, while all but 4 states allow for name and sex to be changed on birth certificates for those who have undergone sex reassignment surgery. Many states do not recognize sex reassignment as legally binding for marriage, and that is because transsexuals are often not recognized as the gender that they have transitioned to. So in the majority of cases in which a post-op transsexual is attempting to enter into a heterosexual marriage, the government regards such unions as same-sex marriages, and currently those are still illegal in most US states. Of course, once that injustice is finally overturned, there doesn't seem to be any foreseeable obstacles for transgender people in that arena. Of course, it always helps one's perspective by conversing with actual transgender people. Here are just a few in the atheist community that are worth checking out. Obviously, I can't offer insight into the psyche of those who experience gender dysphoria, and it's always better to go straight to the source, rather than just talk straight out of your backside about something you can never understand.